Welcome everyone, I'm Rebby and I'm going to help you today. I've been using Procreate for some time now and I want to share with y'all the knowledge that I've acquired and I have applied to my illustrations. But before we start, I just wanted to mention that this is going to be a beginner-friendly tutorial on the main features of Procreate that you need to learn about if you want to use this program like I do to make illustrations. This is not going to be a step-by-step tutorial on how to make an illustration, nor I will show you my drawing process. With that being said, let's begin! When launching Procreate, you're going to be met with some examples artworks, so I'm going to use them to showcase what you can do on this first page. If you want to group up multiple projects, hold one and drag it on another artwork or group. You can delete any group or project by tapping select, checkmark what you want to remove and tap delete. To start a new project, click on the plus icon. At this point, you can either select a pre-made canvas or create a new one with your preferred size and features. These are the three main ones I will use on my iPad, but I've technically made more pre-made canvases on Photoshop too. So these are all the sizes I've ever used. Feel free to pause the video if you need to copy any of them. Keep in mind that on Procreate, the canvas size influences the number of layers that will be available. So the bigger the canvas, the less amount of layers you'll be able to use. If you want to create your own canvas, tap on this icon and write down the size. I kept my DPI always at 300 because I would want all my illustrations to be able to be printed out at all times. As for the color profile, this is what I use. Procreate automatically records a time-lapse of your process, so here you can adjust the quality you would want the video to be. I keep it at 1080p and good quality, but these settings are really up to preference. Finally, in Canvas properties, you can change the color of your background and if you would want to show it or not. I personally never even bothered with this, because I can just simply change both options while I'm working on the drawing itself as well. But I can see it being useful if you want all your artworks to have a specific background color or have a transparent one. Once you're done with the settings, you can rename this pre-made you've just created. And here we have our new project. As you can see now, there are a few icons in the top bar, so I'll go through them first. Starting from the brush icon, this will open the brush library, which, as you may have guessed, contains all the brushes. They are all already grouped up based on effects and features, but to make life easier for myself, I've created a favorites group containing all my most used brushes and the ones I want a quick access to. To create a new group of brushes, swipe down until you find the plus icon and tap on it. Now you can rename the new brush group you've just created. You can add already existing brushes to it by holding down the selected brush and dragging it into the new group. Or you can also create a new brush by tapping on the plus icon. Here you can change all the settings to your liking. Swipe to the left on any brush to duplicate it or delete it. By clicking on the brush group icon, you can either rename it, delete it, share it, or duplicate it. Here on the left, you can adjust the size and opacity of the selected brush. You can mark specific sizes and opacity levels by clicking on the plus icon. Tap on minus to remove it. This next one is called the smudge tool, and as the name suggests, it allows you to blend different colors, like so. This is just the eraser. And again, you can change the type of brush you use to erase things. This one is the layer icon, and by tapping it, you will be able to see all the layers of your project. I am currently working on layer 1, as you can see, and as I've mentioned before, I can turn off the background in this instance as well. To add another layer, press on the plus. To lock, duplicate or delete it, swipe to the left. Oh, and by the way, when a layer is locked, you can't work on it. By tapping on a specific layer preview, you can see a list of actions applicable to the layer. Most of these don't need an explanation, in my opinion, since they literally mean what they say. So I'm just gonna demonstrate what the alpha lock one does. Let's say you have your drawing and you want to add shadows or whatever, but without going out of the lines or colored area. You can do just that by turning on alpha lock. Another way you can achieve this same result is by adding a new layer on top and click on Clipping Mask. I personally prefer this method because it allows me to have more control over the shadows, highlights and gradients without ruining the base layer, like it would happen by just turning on the alpha lock option. When you're done, you can merge them down into one layer if you want as well. Hold, drag and drop the layers to move them around. You see this N? It stands for normal. If you click on it, it will show you a list of effects that can be applied to the layer to give it a different look. For example, I usually use a multiply layer for my shadows and either a screen, overlay or add layer for my highlights. And one last thing about layers, if you want to group them up, you can select each layer by swiping to the right and tap group. Last icon on the top right corner will display the color section. I prefer to use the classic display because it allows me to properly visualize the saturation and brightness of the colors, but a disk view option is still available, just like the harmony option and value option. The last section is fully dedicated to palettes, some of which are default. However, you can also create your own palette by either choosing the colors yourself or by importing an image. You can do it by clicking on the plus icon again and tap New from Photos. Procreate will automatically create a palette of colors based on the image you will select. Now, let's go on the completely opposite side. And as you can see, this icon will open up a menu with a lot of different actions. So let's just go through the main ones. If you're someone who likes to have the references on the canvas itself, you can do that on Procreate too by tapping on Insert Photo. I personally use this option to add certain textures as well to the canvas. However, if, let's say, you wouldn't want your reference to appear in the time-lapse, for example, you can also insert a private photo. All the other actions in the sections are pretty self-explanatory, so let's move on to the next one. Crop and resize allows you to resize your whole canvas to your liking. If you want to make animations, simply turn Animation Assist on, and as you can see, a bar will appear at the bottom of your screen. Here all your frames will be displayed, and by tapping on them you'll be able to change some settings, such as the duration. Tap Add Frame to create a new frame, tap on Settings to change the animation settings, and finally click on Play to see the animation in action. Next up, we've got Page Assist, which will have a similar layout as the Animation Assist, but this time it's going to act more like a new sketchbook page. Now, the drawing guide. Once you turn that on, click on Edit, and as you can see, you're going to have multiple options to help you out with your drawing, such as the Perspective tool and the Symmetry tool. Once you turn on this feature, it will only affect the layer that you've currently selected. You can also turn it off like this and this. Now, let's say you do not want your references to occupy space on your canvas itself. You can simply turn this on and done. You'll have a floating reference that you can easily resize and move around. Flip horizontal and vertical, obviously just flip the canvas, which is something that you should do, by the way, if you don't want your drawings to look wonky. Canvas info displays all the information about the current project, including the number of layers that we already used, the total file size, the track time, etc. Once you're done with the drawing, click on Share to export it in any of the following formats. I usually use either JPEG or PNG. Next up, the video section. Here you can watch a replay of your current time-lapse. You can also pause it by turning this off, but be aware that if you tap on Purge, you will lose the whole time-lapse. When you're ready to export it, you can either choose the 30 seconds option or the full option, which, by the way, it's still going to shrink an hour of work into a minute of time-lapse. Here on Preferences, you can change things such as the light interface and the pressure and smoothing sensitivity. But in the end, all these options really depend on you, so you can either copy what I already have or mess around a bit and find what's most comfortable for you, I would say. All you gotta know though is that the stabilization option will help you have more steady and clean lines. Also, for some reason, I didn't show it here, but the gesture control group will allow you to activate or change some actions you can do with either your fingers or your pen around the canvas. For example, to undo, I tap once on the screen with 2 fingers. To redo, I tap once on the screen with 3 fingers. And to pick a specific color from the canvas, I tap and hold once with my finger until the eyedropper tool pops up. All these gestures are default, so I pretty much didn't change anything in the gesture control section except for this option, because let me tell you, it gets annoying to have random strokes here and there because of misclicks. Next up, this icon opens up the adjustment sections. First 4 options can be used to change everything about the color of your drawing, such as the saturation, the contrast, the color of the highlights and the shadows, etc. You can also choose a gradient effect between the default ones or create one of your own by picking the colors yourself. The next 3 options consist of different types of blur. You can adjust the intensity of every effect by sliding your pen to the left or to the right. The noise effect will add a grainy texture to the canvas. Sharpen will enhance the details, so to speak. Bloom does, well, this. Glitch can help you create different glitch effects. Halftone will make all these dots appear, which simulate a gradient-like effect. And finally, chromatic aberration gives a 3D look to the artwork. The last tool of this section that I want to talk about is the liquify tool, as it is extremely useful to fix small mistakes, like so. Next up is the lasso tool. Extremely important one, as it allows you to select anything and speed up some parts of the drawing process. I usually prefer to use the freehand option as it's easier for me to control the selected areas. And last but not least, this arrow icon allows you to move around and change the size and shape of the select layer. Uniform will keep the same ratio. Freeform will allow you to change the height and width independently from one another. Distort helps you with perspective drawings, and warp, well, it will warp things around. And that's it for this video. If you have any type of question, please do leave a comment. I'll answer them all as best as I can. Thank you for watching. Let's all go back to drawing. Peace.